great to see you all here. I'm Larry Taylor. I'm the chairman of the the State Senate's Republican Caucus. And we're happy to see you this morning. We're here working. We're working on important bills. I want to thank the press for being here today to hear specifics about these bills. We've heard a lot of national press describe a lot of generalities and things that they say are in the bill that aren't actually in the bill. I think it's important that people know what's really in the bill. I mean, it's unfortunate that people have left the state. They might have spent some of that time on the bus and the plane reading the bill, and maybe they would have come back. But yesterday, we took up two very important bills, both having to do with crimes. One is a crime at the ballot box, and one is against a crime against property and lives. That was the election integrity bill that you've heard so much about. And the other had to do with bail bond reform. And so we're going to have Senator Hughes and Senator Huffman here describing those just briefly. But the fact is, we can't continue on the process of really getting those done. The House cannot accept bills that we send over under their rules without a quorum. So the work we're doing in case they do come back. But as of now, they cannot accept those bills. So the work we're doing for the people of Texas is being wasted and squandered by people being out of this state who've chosen to break quorum. I find it very interesting they're talking about the democratic process when they have chosen to short circuit the Democrat process, which involves elections, and then people get elected and they come up here and serve and they do their job. And that process has been short-circuited by people leaving by planes, trains, and automobiles. I don't know about any trains. Mostly it was private jets, I think, and nice buses. Fortunately, they had something to drink along the way, so they weren't suffering too badly, based on the pictures that I've seen. But this is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy for the people of Texas, and it's an affront to people of Texas that people from Texas would go to D.C. and ask them to bring D.C. to Texas. How many of you think what's going on in D.C. works versus what we do here in Texas? It works. Our process works. Our state is thriving. The people of Texas are thriving. And guess what? More people are coming to Texas because what we're doing works. If they could leave D.C., they would do that as well. But they're coming to Texas because what we do works. And I don't think we want D.C. politics brought to Texas. And I don't think we want some of the things that are happening in D.C. brought here. So with that, I'd like to introduce Senator Hughes, the author of Senate Bill 1, who has actually carried this bill now on the floor, I believe, twice. And apparently we're going to get to do it a third time if they don't come back before this session is over. So with that, I'd like to introduce Senator Hughes. The next up we'll have Senator Huffman, who is the author of Senate Bill 6, having to do with bail reform. Very important bail reform. People are dying at the hands of people who've been let out on bonds, very low bonds, numerous times, eventually ending up killing people and robbing and maiming other people. So these are very important bills. They're very important to Texans. And I would like to ask if Senator, where'd he go? Senator Hughes, step up first, and then he'll bring up Senator Huffman, and we'll take questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you each for coming. Anyone who says there's no voter fraud in Texas is telling a very big lie. I hope before you leave you'll look at the placards behind the members of the Senate, just a few of the documented cases of election fraud in Texas. One has to do with the case in my district in beautiful East Texas, where we have a county commissioner out on bail charged with voter fraud for mail ballot fraud. One of many cases around the state. So many times, these cases are about paid political operatives who are trying to steal votes, trying to coerce voters, to intimidate voters, to get in between the voter and the ballot. This is about protecting voters. Sadly, it's our most vulnerable voters, the elderly, folks with limited English, that are most often preyed upon. And so this doesn't get missed. I'm going to share with you some sworn testimony very briefly from Ms. Cavazos. This is sworn testimony from a trial in Hidalgo County. And here's Ms. Cavazos testifying about the lady who she thought was helping her with her ballot. Ms. Cavazos says, well, she was going to assist me how to do those things because I didn't understand the machine. She started punching the machine. So I saw that she put it in favor of the team she was on. You didn't mark it? No, I didn't touch the poll at any time. And then what happened? I had the idea that she was giving me like a tour of how to do those things and that she was going to leave. So by the time I told her, okay, let me vote on my own, She said, no, you already voted. Sworn testimony, one of many cases in Texas where voters are being preyed upon by ballot harvesters, by folks who are trying to cheat for political and monetary gain. That will not be allowed in Texas. That's what Senate Bill 1 is about. Now, how is the law in Texas currently? Texas already has more in-person early voting than many, many states. You know this, but let's don't forget the president's home state of Delaware has no in-person early voting. I hear they passed a bill trying to be more like Texas. Even after that bill, they'll have fewer days of in-person early voting than Texas. New York has fewer days. New Jersey has fewer days. Texas offers weekend voting, offers extended hours to vote. Texas leads the nation in opportunities to vote. Those are the facts. Now, what does this bill do to further make it easier to vote in Texas? Under current law, on Election Day, if you're in line when the polls close, you must be allowed to vote. But did you know that that protection is not allowed to folks who vote early? And most Texans today vote early. So Senate Bill 1 says for the first time in early voting, if you're in line when the polls close, you get to vote, no matter how long it takes. What about getting off work to go vote? We've all had concerns about folks who work different hours, multiple jobs. What about helping them? In addition to weekend voting, Senate Bill 1 says this: during early voting, your employer has got to let you off work to vote. We've had that protection for Election Day, but never before for early voting. We're also expanding hours, making them consistent across the state, and very important, under current law, many Texans have their mail ballots thrown out on technicalities. But under Senate Bill 1, for the first time, Texans will have a way to correct those errors so that their votes will be counted. Just a few of the ways this bill improves the process for all Texans. Again, we urge people to look at the provisions of the bill, not the national talking points out of D.C., but what is in the bill. That's what this is about. How much fraud is okay? None. How much suppression is okay? None. That's why Senate Bill 1 makes it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And we will stay here for as long as it takes and come back as many times as it takes to give these protections to every Texas voter. I'm now pleased to introduce Senator Joan Huffman to talk about an important public safety bill that will save lives. Senator Huffman.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Hughes, and thank you all for being here. And as Larry and Senator Hughes have said, this is critical that we get bail reform passed in Texas. I told my Senate colleagues yesterday, as I presented the bill on the Senate floor, that this was the fourth time that they had listened to me lay out this presentation and that many of them had voted for the bill. Why is this legislation important? Because throughout the state, we're centered and focused on Harris County because that's where the crisis is being exhibited now, but it will spread throughout the state, that individuals who are committing very violent crimes are getting out on multiple either PR bonds or very low bonds. This bill targets the violent, repeat offenders who are preying on our communities. I highlighted yesterday 5 murders. Now, when I say 5 murders, obviously that's horrible, awful, but you may think, well, you know, there's murders throughout Texas. I only highlighted those 5 and I named the victims because those are the 5 individuals who have been murdered since the House Democrat, with their antics at the end of last session, caused the last bail reform bill to die. Those 5 individuals were all murdered by defendants out on multiple bonds for felony offenses. The exact kind of people that we are targeted. Layla Steele, a young mother holding her 1-year-old child, shot multiple times. The child shot in the leg by an individual who she had a protective order against, but was out on not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 felony warrants, felony bonds, 7. Does that not horrify you? It certainly should. And it should horrify the House Democrats who are languishing in Washington, showing us their selfies and their visits and their, whatever they're doing. I hope they think it's worth it. I hope they think it's worth the lives that are being cost. One of the provisions of the bill that I passed yesterday with a 2/3 vote would make once the governor signed the bill, which I know he will create, some of the bill would go into effect immediately, and that would be the provision that would disallow judges from granting any type of personal bond to violent offenders. Some of the other parts of the bill, the Office of Court Administration has to develop through bond forms, the transparency, the accountability factor, the training for judges, all very important parts of the bill, but it will take about 3 months to get that going. But there are critical parts of this bill that if they take immediate effect will make an immediate difference in the lives of Texans. And certainly that should be important to every legislator who has sworn to defend the Constitution and sworn to protect their constituents. So we are angry. I am, and I think I can speak for a lot of senators here. We are angry because we have come here to work. We have an important job to do. We may not all agree, but I will say that in the Senate, it was a 22-0 vote on these two bail bills, both the constitutional amendment and the bail bill. And so I want to commend the Senate Democrats who stayed and gave us their vote yesterday to pass something that they also understand is important for the safety of their constituents. So with that, I'll end and happy to answer any questions. And we all thank you for being here today. Thank you.
What is your response to Democrats who say that this election reform bill is only needed based on the big lie?
Okay, our response to the Democrats' claim that this is only a response to the big lie, as the media calls it. First of all, we've been working on election reform. I was the Elections Committee chair back in 2011. We've done election reform. We've been working on, we've had bills filed in the last 2 and 3 sessions working on election reform. This is not a new thing. As new ways of pop up of ways to contravene our election laws, we have to address those. And if we're made aware of these things, we want to address those. We don't want any cheating in Texas. We hear about people worried about the integrity of the ballot box. We want to make sure that people know that they're secure. But we are not for hindering anyone's rightful ability to vote. We've gone above and beyond. We're raising the number of hours. We're doing all these things to make sure that people have all these things. Well, I'll tell you this, we did voter ID. All the claims, oh, this is going to hurt the voter turnout, this is going to, nothing but the opposite has happened. Those numbers have gone up significantly. Our voter turnout is up, our total votes are up, and yes, it's more than our population has grown. So those things weren't correct then, and they're not correct now. This is all about voting integrity. It's not about trying to keep anyone who's rightfully supposed to vote. But guess what? We don't want anybody who's not rightfully allowed to vote. And we will do everything in our power to keep them from voting, because that suppresses the will of the people of Texas. And we're not going to allow that to happen on our watch. Yes, sir.
Do you believe the presidential election was stolen?
Do I believe the presidential election was stolen? I don't know that. You know, I hear a lot of discussion about it. There's been no real investigation on that, but this is not what that's about. You can ask those questions all day long, but that really is not about what we're doing here today. This is about election integrity. And once again, this started way before the 2020 election. This has been going on. It's an ongoing process. Nothing new here other than we keep finding out new ways and finding out more of these things that are happening. Look around you on these boards when we pull out of here. There are numerous cases of this going on, and that's just the ones that have been caught. You don't think we catch every one? These are just the ones that have been caught. We know it's going on. We hear people talk about it. We've had people testify under oath what they've seen. So it's out there. And so this idea that there's no voter fraud going on is ridiculous on its face. So yeah, this is not about Trump 2020. This is about what's right for Texas.
I spoke with Senator Nathan Johnson, who's in Washington, as you know, about what he doesn't like about, what does he find objectionable about the legislation, SB 1. He told me he doesn't like the fact that they're what he calls criminalization of poll workers, volunteers, if they make a mistake, and that he asked, why can't there be voter registration online and make it easier for people to register to vote?
So real quick, Senator Johnson is pointing out some things he doesn't like in the bill. And those were not being able to register online, criminalizing poll watchers,
Well, criminalizing employees.
Yep,
and
criminalizing
judges or volunteers.
election workers then.
Yes.
Is that the two questions? I'll let Senator Hughes answer those.
Mr. Chairman. We like Senator Johnson, smart guy, nice guy. He should look carefully at what is in the bill. The only new offense in this bill along those lines is for failing to admit a poll watcher. The law already says poll watchers have access. They can observe any activity going on except the casting of the ballot. It's already a Class A misdemeanor to inhibit their work in the polling place. What's added by Senate Bill 1 is saying if a poll watcher has been qualified and has their paperwork, you must admit them into the polling place. That's not too much to ask to follow the law. As far as online registration, Texas now has online voter registration for the first time as of just this year. That's something new. We are always looking for ways to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat.
That was the last question. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Short answer is he should be here.
Yeah, leave the posters.